Oh, that's an interesting question. So, yeah, so if people are nerding out on this, they know that...
Oh, they're nerding out.
Right, no, that's what you guys do. You want to nerd out, I'm your guy. So let's nerd out for a second.
This is the only pure thing in this world.
All of the Ash people are inflicting pain upon themselves with piercings and ritual scarification and so on, because they're saying, we can endure more pain than you can. Fear us. Fear our power, because the world tried to wipe us out, and we just grew stronger from it. And that's what they're saying. So Oona thought, okay, Zoe leads very heart forward. There's a not V way to move. And Zoe embraced that, and in fact even sort of created the baseline for all of the other female characters. Oona said, no, I'm going to lead from the pelvis. I'm going to lead forward with my power as a woman, even though she's suppressing it. The character binds her breasts very tightly to get them out of the way of her bow firing and as a warrior and all that. But it also has this kind of almost inverse eroticism.
Something that I love that you do with her character and Steven's character, which a lot of films wouldn't invest time in, which is have a love story for the villains.
I know, right? What a crazy idea that is. There's embedded within that the dread of the two of them getting together as allies. And I actually was quite fascinated by that. I got a little bit of pushback from some creative folks at the studio. Why are we spending so much time on Quaritch? I said, because it's going to be the best scene in the film. Trust me.
You want to spread your fire across the world. You need me.
She took to the performance capture right away because it felt like drama school for her. She was able to perform knowing a certain feline kind of movement, and she did a lot of stuff that was very low and very low in the hips, right, as she kind of glided around, and she created all that movement. It was an extension of some movement work that we had done for Zoe and for Zoe's double Alicia, who was very important. She was a member of our troupe, and Alicia and Oona worked together a little bit, but Oona took it to a whole new level. She came up with the weapon system that she used, this curved sickle-like blade. She figured out a way that she could have two of them joined together and form this double scythe shape, and then she could take two of those and spin them. And she came up with the whole fire ceremony, that whole dance that she does. Highly, highly creative. She's RADA trained, right? So the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts in England. Those accoutrements exist in her mind. So she wore a little wireframe thing so that she wouldn't bump her headdress into things and stuff like that, so you have a kind of a spatial awareness. We have to capture a great performance first in order to work with it. I don't want people thinking that a computer can replace what my cast does on these movies. So I think it comes as a shock to a lot of people that I worked with the cast in performance capture for 18 months across these two films. I've seen how people don't understand our work and how we do it, and especially in an age of generative AI where people just think computers can create anything. Everything you see people do physically, they did, and if there was something that the actor couldn't do, obviously we had a stunt double do it, but a human being did everything you see. There's no keyframe animation, there's no generative AI, it's all performed. I shot Titanic in 6 months, and it took an average of 9 months to capture just this film. I'm pulling back the curtain and saying, okay guys, I don't think it's well understood how this process works. There's never been the kind of acceptance of performance capture acting as equal to photographic acting. Photographic acting, as we understood cinema growing up and so on, going back 130 years, is not better. It's just first. My strong belief is that performance capture is a much purer form of acting. It's even purer, I would say, than stage itself when the audience is there. Stage rehearsal, on the other hand, is where you're exploring and you're finding and you're fine-tuning and you're crafting scenes and so on. That's what our process is very much like. People they get this word technology and it becomes a kind of barrier in their mind because they see somebody in a helmet with a facial capture rig, and it's like, oh well, that can't be intuitive, that can't be real, can't feel real. I've never had an actor yet that tried it and didn't like it, but the vast majority, I don't know, 99% of the acting community has never done it. So because they don't know it, haven't done it, they tend to dismiss it. I need my costume, to feel like I'm that person. It's like, actually not. It turns out that actors really like it because, okay, you're there in a costume, great. You're in a set, great. Now, you go to your trailer for an hour and a half while we turn the lighting around. We're doing coverage. We shoot a master shot. Now you have to match what you already did every single time for all that coverage. Well, we don't do any of that. That's all later. I'll do all the coverage later. All I need is one great take on any moment of the film that we all love and feel satisfied with, and I can extract all my close-ups and my wide shots and all that stuff from it later.
Letterboxd loves cinematography.
Sure.
So
do I.
Yes. What is the process of finding lighting and the angles after everything's been shot?
You have to pull forward that part of your brain that will be solving that problem later, a little bit into the moment when you block it. But, any experienced director knows, okay, when people talk, two people are talking, you can always do an over-the-shoulder, you can always do a two-shot, you can always single out, that sort of thing. When the scene gets a little more fluid, you've got to figure out what your key positions are. Where I find it's important during the performance capture is when I'm setting my reference cameras, because I can't cut with the data that is captured of the actor. I have to also have a reference camera, and it's just a bunch of guys with HD video cameras hand-holding, and they'll get in and they'll jostle for position to make sure I've got a good close-up on everybody in the scene. They're not shots that will appear in the movie, and I'm not bound even by those angles. It's a record that allows us to cut performance, right? So that we see when the actors were great. Take 4, wow, everybody was hitting it. But, maybe Sam said it a certain way on take 6, and we'll figure out how we want to merge that together later when I start actually picking my camera angles. So I love the cinematography. I love lens selection. I love lighting. I love working with the DP on this stuff. When we bring our DP into that virtual camera process as well. Obviously, live action is a whole separate level to this, which comes later for like the spider character, for example, or Edie Falco's character, or Jermaine Clement's character, the marine biologist. We have to shoot them live, and we have to integrate them into this greater world, and that's the challenge that we do third. And I'll have the live action actors come forward into that capture process so that the other actors get to work with them. So if you're a live action actor on an Avatar movie, you're going to wind up doing everything twice. Maybe not everybody would do it that way, but I feel that's important.
What goes into the selection process of when you're going to do high frame rate?
So let's nerd out for a second. So how does stereopsis work in the human brain? We have neurons in our brain that fire when they see the background displaced around typically a vertical line, right? It could be the side of your ear, could be the side of your shoulder, whatever. And that displacement happens on that vertical axis, but it happens horizontally, right? Now, if that vertical line is moving and strobing, those neurons don't fire properly, and we get a sense of discomfort, right? So people talk about eye strain. We don't decode stereo in our eyes, we decode it in our visual cortex. So it's really brain strain, right? So we want to remove that. My philosophy on stereo photography is it should always add value, never take away. If it's becoming troublesome because of horizontal strobing artifacts, we can cure that. We just go to a higher frame rate for that shot or for that frame range. So we'll go through it and we'll say, oh, this is fine at 24p. This, we need it, right? And usually it's in action or it's when the camera's moving laterally, and we're getting very good at identifying that. And I think that by the next film, any film that I do that involves 3D, which is all my films, we'll have an actual algorithm that kind of lights up, okay, you got to do this shot. Right now it's subjective. We figure it out as we go along. And I've got a whole team of people that are trained in this, and their decisions are usually pretty strong. But every once in a while, we'll get through partway down the pipeline, and I'll say, this shot's a little stroby. Let's kick it to a 48 frame render. It's hodgepodgey. Sometimes it's a whole scene. Sometimes it's just certain shots within a scene. 70 millimeters is a format. HFR is not a format in my mind. It's an authoring tool to improve the stereo. Now, we did make a format-like decision that every underwater scene would be done at 48 frames. And we do that for a combination of smoothness, otherworldliness, and clarity. Because another thing that HFR does is that actually, because the image replacement rate is higher, your noise floor drops and your acuity, your subjective sense of the acuity of the image goes up. And we want people to see the particulate floating in the water, which in 3D gives you a sense of the medium. I mean, we can't create the feeling of being underwater, but we can create the look of being underwater. You can think you have the right degree of particulate, and when you go into 3D in a theater, all of a sudden the water looks too clear. So we have to actually push it up a little bit because you're seeing around the particles between the left eye and the right eye. It's like a noise floor averaging kind of effect.
This film, you do play a little bit with your filmography. There's some nice asides.
I always say it's not conscious. I just only have so many good ideas, and I just recycle them.
Well, Sigourney's line of
Leave my mother alone.
"Leave my mother alone," and then adding,
Bitch! Yeah. Well, I just don't know what else you'd say. In my mind, that wasn't as much of a conscious callback, although it's fine. If people remember a movie that I did 38 years ago, I think I've already won that argument.
Get away from her, you bitch!
Like I said, I only got 5 good ideas, so I'll throw in a sinking ship. Why not? Now, this ship doesn't sink, though.
Yeah.
It gets ripped up out of the water and torn apart and thrown into the sky in pieces, so that's a little bit of a swerve.
You did do a little bit of a test to prove that the door had no room.
Oh, yeah, if you want to go there, it's like, at first it was kind of like irked, right? Because this had become a meme and it was, totally viral at that point. It's like, oh, guys, get over it, Romeo's got to die. And then I thought, all right, let's just find out the answer. I'm not going in with an agenda here. I got the best hypothermia expert I could find in New Zealand. I got a young guy and woman stunt people, same exact age, body type as Leo and Kate. We couldn't put them in the water at the same temperature as where the Titanic sank, which is 28 Fahrenheit. Could have killed them. So we had to put them into water that was a bit warmer than that. I think it was 42 degrees, something like that, but still really cold. And then they had to adjust the data accordingly, and they had a conversion scale that they could use. So it was all done very scientifically. And guess what the answer was? If they had both gotten on the raft, he would have still died. Unless he knew everything that we know now about the body's hypothermic response, and he took certain very specific actions based on that scientific knowledge, which didn't exist in 1912. Because he loved her so much as a character, it was all about creating a scenario where he had to sacrifice himself so that she could live. The intention of the writing, the actual literal physics and the historical period and what was known says Jack dies. But that's not what people wanted to hear, and so that's not what they heard.
What makes you hopeful about the future of film?
That's a question you should ask me again in about 3 months, where we see if people show up for this sucker. Because we pulled out every stop to make this the kind of experience you want to see in a movie theater. And if people don't show up in movie theaters, then I'm not going to be as hopeful about the theatrical experience. What are we hoping for? More accessibility, more volume, you know what I mean? Or are we hoping for those singular, unique, deeply moving experiences? Because you're not going to get that when you've got a remote. When you go into a movie theater, you don't have a remote. You're going for a ride. We're not drafting people off the street and dragging them into movie theaters. They're pre-selecting to go there. To have that engagement, that kind of all-encompassing, immersive experience, maybe the future of cinema is that films have to deliver on that level, which is okay. That's what I do. You know what I mean? That's my gig. So it should be good.